Hello everyone. So I welcome all of you back in this e-lecture series. I hope all of you are safe. So we have started with GIT and already covered the peptic ulcer and antiemetic. So today I am going to teach you about the drugs used in the treatment of constipation. Okay. So though it looks boring, but I will try to make it interesting for you. Okay. So what we are going to see today, we will see first about the introduction and etiology of constipation. Okay, what are the causes of constipation, what is exactly the constipation. Then we will see the classification of the drugs useful in the treatment of constipation. Then we will see the mechanism of action in general, and then we will go to the individual four classes of drugs which are useful in the constipation. First is a bulk purgatives, second is a stool softener, third stimulant purgative, fourth osmotic purgative. Okay, these are the four classes: bulk purgative, stool softener, stimulant purgative and osmotic purgative. Then we will see what are the contraindications of use of laxative oblique purgative, and then we will see what are the indications or uses of purgatives. Okay, now coming to the first, that is the introduction. Okay, so there is no hard and fast definition for constipation. Okay, but if we have to define, or if we have to say what is the constipation, so we can say in this word like infrequent production of hard stools. Okay, the frequency is reduced, and this frequency applies to that particular individual also, so it cannot be generalized for every person. So frequency is reduced for that particular person, and there is a hard stools. The stools are not soft, they are the hard, requiring straining to pass. So there is a requiring the efforts to pass the stools as compared to the normal efforts. Okay, so more efforts are required to pass those stools, or a sense of incomplete evacuation. Means even after the completing the defecation process, the person has not that satisfactory feeling of complete evacuation. So there is always a sense of incomplete evacuation. So infrequent production of hard stools requiring straining to pass, or a sense of incomplete evacuation may be called as a constipation. Another thing what we can say, like delayed passage of feces through the intestine with the defecation process remaining the normal. Means in other words, the colonic motility is reduced, or colonic transit time is increased, or colonic transition or motility is decreased, because of which the feces are passing very lately, or there is a delayed passage of feces. Now remember one thing, constipation is a symptom rather than a disease. So it is you can say a warning signal for any underlying disease, or it may not be any disease, it may be because of some other causes. So we'll see. So constipation is a symptom, okay, not a disease. Now, before going to the actual pharmacological classification of the drugs, what I think is important to find out for the causes or etiology, because in general practice, constipation is a thing where we will not jump onto the drugs directly. First we will try out some non-pharmacological measures. Okay, and for that non-pharmacological measures we should know what are the causes of constipation, then we can treat the patient in a non-pharmacological way. If these measures fail, then obviously we have to give the drugs. So what are the causes of constipation? First, about misconception about the normal or necessary frequency. Okay, the person may feel that suppose one time passing the stool is maybe adequate for some person, so it's not necessary 2 or 3 times is a frequency. So there is no necessary frequency defined, but the people may feel that there is a less frequency in me. Okay, so amount or consistency of a stools. So there are some misconceptions in the society, or taboos you can say, which can lead, and because of this type of the person unnecessarily, without consulting the doctors, they can use the laxative or purgative, even the local or the some drugs. Okay, second is a very important, is inadequate fiber content in the diet and less fluid oblique water intake. This is the most important thing which can be modified. Okay, so fiber Okay, so you know fibers, they are not digestible. Okay, so the fibers have the property to absorb the water. So more the fiber content in the diet, it will have a more peristaltic activity and the softening of the stools, so less chances of constipation. Nowadays we are learning very much about the fiber, that this particular biscuits contain more fiber, this particular diet contains more fiber. So we should have a fiber rich diet. So inadequate fiber as well as less water intake. Remember, water intake should be adequate, 2 to 3 liter at least for a person, especially in the summer season, so that there will be a less chances of constipation. If there is a not adequate, then a person may suffer from constipation. Lack of physical activity and sedentary nature of a work. This is again a thing in the corporate lifestyle or office work, where we don't have any physical activity or exercise and a sedentary nature, which can give rise to the constipation. Irregular bowel habits, rushing out for the job, okay, then ignoring the urge of defecation to have a bowel movement. So most of the time, when this is a very embarrassing situation actually, most of when we're in the office or the lectures or in some such a places, we ignore this defecation signal or defecation reflex, and because of that a patient may suffer from the constipation if he is doing on a long term this. Then all these are the causes of functional constipation, where actually there is no disease or pathology in the intestine or in the body, but there can be some disease in the body, and that is called as a organic or secondary constipation. Remember, when there is no organic cause, it is called functional constipation, which can be treated by the other methods. But whenever there is organic or secondary cause, we have to treat that cause. What can be that cause? A strictures or obstruction in the bowel. Okay, some metabolic disorder like vitamin B12 deficiency, yes, it can lead to constipation. Hypothyroidism can lead to constipation. Diabetes mellitus and Parkinson's disease, this can lead to the constipation. Diabetes mellitus can also lead to the diarrhea if it is because of autonomic neuropathy. Okay, and there are some drugs which can also cause the constipation. A very important, opioids like a morphine type of drugs, sedatives, anticholinergic drugs like atropine type of the class, which decreases the motility. Because of that, they can cause the constipation, including anti-Parkinsonian drug, antidepressants and antihistaminics, because they also have some amount of anticholinergic property. Oral iron, clonidine, which is alpha 2 agonist, useful in the treatment of hypertension. Verapamil, calcium channel blocker, yes, constipation is a very important side effect. And laxative abuse itself, a laxative more because the person may have an addiction to the laxative, which may lead to the constipation as a vicious cycle. So these all are the causes of constipation. Now, a treatment approach to the constipation, it is very simple. The causes we have already seen in the last slide. We have to just improve those causes, or we have to modify those causes. How? Increase the fiber content in the diet. Okay, we will see what are the actually fibers. Increase in the daily fluid or water intake. It's not only water, it can you can take a fruit juices or anything liquid for form of a diet. Yes, increase in the physical activity oblique exercise, so the morning walk or the jogging, or even when you are at a hobby, some amount of physical activity. Adjusting the daily routine. Okay, you should have a mostly in the morning or in the whatever the timing should be fixed, because our body adapts to those timing, like an internal homeostasis, what we know. Not neglecting the nature's call. This is a very funny but important one. Selecting the alternative drugs which causes the lesser constipation. For example, if we have to give the opioid, so instead of morphine, we can prefer the tramadol type of drug, which are not acting on mu receptor that strongly and have a less chances of constipation. Correcting the underlying pathology in organic causes or in secondary constipation. Vitamin B12 deficiency, vitamin B12 do, hypothyroidism, thyroxine do. So just like that, you can treat the underlying pathology. If all these measures fails, then we can think of using the laxative or purgative. Okay, so this is the treatment approach for constipation. Increase the fiber content, increase the daily fluid or water intake, increase physical activity, adjust daily routine, don't neglect the you can say defecation signal, select the alternative drugs, and correct the underlying pathology. Now the laxative, there are various synonymous words which are used interchangeably, I can say, for the laxative. Which are they? Aperients, purgatives, or cathartics. So we will see the meaning of these words. Drugs that promote the evacuation of bile or produces the solid or semi-solid stools, these are called as the laxative, purgative, cathartics, or aperients. What is important? Promote the evacuation of bile, so they are evacuating the bile or making the bile empty by obviously drawing the secreting the more water, or they can produce the solid or semi-solid stools. Okay, so depending upon the intensity of action, this can be divided into the two. First is a laxative or aperient, and second is a purgative or cathartic. Okay, so what is the laxative or aperient? They are milder in action, their intensity of action is mild, they have a elimination of soft but firm stools. Okay, milder intensity of action, and rather than causing the watery evacuation, they causes the soft form stools. Okay, what is the second? Purgative or cathartic. They have a stronger action and they result in more fluid or watery evacuation, or you can say liquid type of the stool. So solid or soft and firm stools, laxative or aperient, and more watery evacuation or fluid evacuation we call it as a purgative or cathartic. In other words, you can say a purgative at a lower dose can act as a laxative, and laxative at a higher dose can act as a purgative, but this is not applicable to all. Okay. Yes, now coming to the classification. So first one is a bulk forming. Okay, there are 4 classes. The first one is a bulk forming. As the name suggests, they increases the bulk of feces, because of which they can be easily propelled outside the intestine. Okay, so they include the dietary fiber, which include wheat bran. Okay, so bran we will see, but in Marathi it is a konda. Okay, after when you have a floor of wheat, so the remaining product is called as a bran. Okay, the second is a psyllium oblique plantago. This is a plant from plant name actually, Plantago ovata, which is also called as a ispagul. Okay, so this plant can be useful as a bulk forming laxative. Remember, we can use the words laxative or purgative interchangeably in the lecture, but there may be some slight differences as we can learn in the last slide. Then semi-synthetic cellulose like methyl cellulose. Okay, so these are the bulk forming laxative. The second group is a stool softener. Okay, as the name suggests, they are softening the stools. So bulk forming and stool softener more or less same. They are softening the stools and they are producing the solid or semi-solid stools. In the stool softener, there are 2 drugs. First is a docusets, or it is also called as a DOS. So it is a short form. What is a long form? Dioctyl sodium sulfosuccinate. Dioctyl sodium sulfosuccinate, or liquid, and the second is a liquid paraffin. So doxates or DOS and the liquid paraffin, these are the 2 purgatives or laxative useful for as a stool softener. Third is a stimulant purgative. Okay, these are also very commonly used for treating the constipation. There are further 5 subgroups in this stimulant purgative. They are also called as an irritant purgative because they stimulate or irritate the intestinal mucosa and increases the peristalsis or intestinal movement. The first one is a diphenylmethanes. Okay, that include phenolphthalein. Yes, this you may have learned in the chemistry, which turns the substance pink if it is alkaline nature. Okay, so like a litmus paper. Phenolphthalein, bisacodyl, and sodium picosulfate. So out of which bisacodyl and sodium picosulfate, they are more frequently preferred. Okay, second group is a plant group which contains the glycosides, which called as a anthraquinones. So these are the glycosides which are obtained from the plants, and they are also called as a imodins. So which are these plants? Is a Senna and Cascara sagrada. Okay, this is difficult to remember, but these are the plants. In the Hindi, I think it is called Sanai plant. So Senna and Cascara sagrada. Okay, these are the plants which produces the anthraquinones, which can be useful for the treatment of constipation. Third is a 5-HT4 receptor agonist. As you know, these are the serotonin receptor, and you have learned in the antiemetic chapter also that 5-HT4 receptor stimulation will increase the peristalsis, and they can be useful for treatment of constipation. So the drug is a prucalopride. Okay, there are another drugs also like cisapride, mozapride, etopride, but prucalopride is preferred. We will see why. Then the next is a fix oil, which is nothing but our castor oil. In Marathi, एरंडीचं तेल or okay, एरंडी का तेल. Castor oil is less frequently preferred nowadays because of its palatability issues, but it can be it is a stimulant purgative. And the last, which is very recently discovered drug, is a prostaglandin analog, which increases or stimulates the prostaglandin synthesis and increases the intestinal motility, is a lubiprostone. So it is a prostaglandin analog. And the last class of the purgatives or laxative is the osmotic purgatives. Okay, so they have, obviously as the name suggests, they have the osmotic activity. Okay, activity to retain the water, okay, in the lumen, obviously. So there are certain magnesium salts like magnesium sulfate or magnesium hydroxide, which is also called as a milk of magnesia, and there are certain sodium salts like sodium sulfate, sodium phosphate, sodium potassium tartarate, and the last is a lactulose. So all these are the osmotic purgative. The only thing which I want to mention, though lactulose is mentioned in the osmotic purgative, the osmotic purgatives mostly causes, as the purgative word is added in these two classes, third and fourth, mostly they causes the fluidy evacuation or watery evacuation of a bowel. But lactulose is an exception, that it mostly causes the formation of soft or semi-solid stools, like these first two classes, bulk forming and stool softener. So we will see in the next slide the another classification. This is the first one, bulk forming, stool softener, stimulant purgative and osmotic purgative, very commonly asked as a part of LAQ in the classification. Second classification as per the nature of the stools. Okay, so there can be a soft and firm stools or feces. These drugs takes 1 to 3 days to produce their action. Second is the semi-fluid stools, that are not too solid, that are not too liquid, so they are semi-solid, okay, or semi-fluid. And third is a watery or you can say a more fluid evacuation. Okay, so the soft or firm feces, this drug takes longer time, 1 to 3 days, sometimes 4 days. Which are the classes in this? First is a bulk forming, means our bran, psyllium, isabgol, or is also called as isabgol. Daucosids, there is a DOS, and liquid paraffin. So first two classes, bulk forming, and these two are stool softener. And apart from that, lactulose. So though having osmotic activity, it is forming the soft and firm feces. The second classes is a semi-fluid or semi-solid stools. This takes 6 to 8 hours. That's why they are mostly given in the night, so that person in the morning have a semi-solid stools. And these are the stimulant purgatives, except castor oil. Okay, phenolphthalein, bisacodyl, sodium picosulfate, all these are the diphenyl methanes. Second class anthracinones in stimulant purgative, a senna plant. So these are the semi-fluid, producing the semi-fluid or semi-solid stools. And third are the watery evacuation, mostly osmotic purgative. Remember, the osmotic purgatives are also called as a saline purgative. And apart from that is a castor oil, which is actually a stimulant purgative but can produce the watery evacuation. These are the very fast acting, they can act within 1 to 3 hours. That's why mostly they are taken in the morning. Okay, so semi-fluid, so these type of the drug are taken in the night at bedtime, while this type of the drug taken are early in the morning. These are also mostly preferred in the morning only. Okay, now coming to the mechanism of action, we will see the individual mechanism of action when we will see the individual drug. But in general, all purgatives increases the water content of feces by first hydrophilic or osmotic action. They have a property to attract the water, that is hydrophilic, okay, or osmotic action. Because of that, retain the water and electrolytes in the intestinal lumen. So they don't allow water and electrolytes to be absorbed into the intestinal epithelium, and they make them to remain in the lumen. Because of that, what happens? Increases the volume of colonic content, means in short, increase the bulk of feces and make the feces soft, and they can be easily propelled. So in general, our first two classes of a drug have this type of action. Okay. Second, acting on intestinal mucosa actually. Okay, so they don't have this hydrophilic or osmotic property to great extent, but actually they irritate the intestinal epithelium or stimulate the intestinal mucosa. Because of which, what happens? They decreases the net absorption of water and electrolyte. Electrolyte means what? Like a sodium, potassium, they are chloride, all these they are not absorbed. And also because of irritating the intestinal mucosa, intestinal transit is increased, means colonic motility is increased. Again, because of indirectly, because of the fluid bulk, because you are preventing the absorption of water and electrolytes, so it is more and more going to penetrate into the feces, and that because of the bulk formation, this can stimulate the peristalsis. Okay, so that is the second mechanism of action. And third is the increasing the propulsive activity as a primary action. So these type of drugs, they decreases the net absorption of water and electrolyte and increases the bulk, which in turn increases the intestinal motility. Some type of drug directly act on the meyenteric plexus in the intestinal intestine, as you have already learned in the autonomic nervous system or in physiology, meyenteric plexus, which are important for peristaltic activity. So they stimulate the meyenteric plexus and increases the propulsive activity or the peristaltic movement, because of which they allow the less time for absorption of salt and water. Okay, so these are the mechanism of action of laxative or purgative. First, they have a hydrophilic or osmotic action. Hydrophilic, bulk forming; osmotic, our last drug, osmotic purgative, because of which they retain the water and electrolytes in the lumen, which penetrate the feces and make them easily propelled or increases the volume of feces. Second, acting on intestinal epithelium and decreases the net absorption of water and electrolyte. Okay, and third, they directly act on the epithelium by and increases the motor activity or peristalsis by stimulating the meyenteric plexus. Now the first class of a drug, that is a bulk purgative. Rather than purgative, they are bulk laxative. Okay? But I already told you this can be interchangeably used word. So first is a dietary fiber, which is the bran. As I already told you, it is produced from the wheat. Okay, so from the wheat flour we obtain this bran. Okay, consist of this bran is consist of unabsorbable cell wall and other constituents of vegetable food like cellulose, lignins, gums, pectins. All these you can see, these are the plant products. So our body don't have a mechanism for the absorption of this type of the substances. So these type of the substances, they are not absorbed, they are forming the bulk of the feces, and because of which water can go inside them and they can be helpful in the production of the feces. As far as the water is concerned, mostly we have almost 9 liter of water which passes through the lumen. Not all the water we are consuming some 2 to 3 liter of water, but another water is how it is coming. It is coming from the lumen of intestine, so it is getting secreted from the intestinal epithelium into the lumen. Okay, so remember, mostly it is a 8 to 9 liter of water. So is it all going to be passed into the feces? Obviously not. Or very less, only about 100 ml of water is passed into the feces. Rest all is reabsorbed, okay, into the intestinal epithelium. And our laxative or purgative are doing that only. They are preventing the reabsorption and they are increasing the secretion of water in the patient of constipation. Okay, just to add to the information about the water. So bran is a residual product of flour industry, which consists of 40% of dietary fiber, which are not absorbed, add to the bulk of the feces, and that's why very important in constipation. So mechanism of action we have already seen. They absorb the water in the intestine because of their hydrophilic action. They swells, they increases the water content of feces because of which feces will become very soft. Okay, and this soft feces in turn secondarily can also stimulate the peristalsis because of their bulky nature, and then they will facilitate the colonic motility, and because of that a patient will have a increased peristalsis and relief from the constipation. Another action, these fibers, they can support the bacterial growth in the colon, because the bacteria, normal bacterial flora in the colon, they can consume the fiber, and because of which there is an increase in bacteria which will contribute to the fecal mass. So they are adding to the bulk of the feces, as the name suggests, bulk forming. Okay, so this is a second thing which this drug, with this type of the products like bran can do. Apart from making the stool softening because of hydrophilic action, there are also one action that decreases the plasma LDL cholesterol. Yes, how? The dietary fibers, they bind the bile acids, okay, ursodeoxycholic acid and chenodeoxycholic acid, as you know from the physiology, and promote their excretion in the feces. So they increases the bile acid excretion in feces, because of which degradation of cholesterol in the liver is enhanced, because the bile acids are prepared from cholesterol. So if bile acids are secreted into the feces, a body requires more bile acid now, and from which they are synthesized? Yes, from cholesterol. So cholesterol is now diverted to produce bile acids, so obviously the plasma or blood level of cholesterol decreases. So that's why this drug can be useful for decreasing the plasma LDL cholesterol, but they are not sole drug. This is a secondary action. Then increased intake of dietary fiber is the first line treatment for prevention of functional constipation or simple constipation. Okay, so whenever we want to prevent a constipation, functional constipation, not secondary or organic constipation, we should have an increased intake of dietary fiber. So in short, this is a tagline. So these type of drugs are less useful in the treatment of constipation. They are more useful in prevention or prophylaxis of constipation. Okay, now prolonged intake of bran, apart from constipation, they are useful in irritable bowel syndrome. Irritable bowel syndrome is a thing where there is no organic cause. A person is psychologically have a psychological cause for irritable bowel syndrome, but there are some symptoms like pain or constipation or maybe diarrhea. Okay, so obviously when there is a pain and there is a constipation, then at that time we can use the bran or other bowel forming agent. What they can do? They reduces the rectosigmoid intraluminal pressure. Okay, yes, from which part the feces are mainly eliminated? From our colon. In that, mainly the descending colon. So sigmoid colon and rectum. Okay, so they reduces the rectosigmoid intraluminal pressure and helps to relieve the symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome, like abdominal pain. Okay, because of not passing the feces, there may be abdominal pain, there may be a constipation. Okay, so this type of the symptoms can be treated by a bran. So this is an adjuvant or secondary treatment, not a first line. They also relieve the symptoms of chronic diverticulosis. So they are also useful when straining at stools has to be avoided. Now when we want to avoid the straining at stools, yes, in certain diseases like infective endocarditis or some another cardiovascular diseases, like if the person has already suffered from MI attack, or in hernia, or in some ocular surgery, or in a patient of piles, okay, or hemorrhoids in other words. So at that time we want to avoid the straining at stools. Okay, so this time of the bulk forming agent can be useful in this type of the patient. Of constipation and for the preventing the straining at stools. What are the drawbacks or side effects of this dietary fiber or bran? Generally they are safe but unpalatable, because they are just like a very not having a proper taste. Okay, so unpalatable. Then next is a bloating and flatulence, which can cause the abdominal discomfort, because they are increasing the bacterial mass, which can produce or cause the fermentation and more production of carbon dioxide, which can result in bloating and flatulence. Okay, so this is another side effect. Third, large quantity like 20 to 40 gram per day needs to be ingested, and also large amount of water needs to be ingested. Remember, all the bulk forming agents, a large amount of water should be taken along with them to have a proper action. Okay, if you are taking only the dietary fiber, then it is not helpful. And because of this, because of unpalatability issues and all these things, the marketing preparations that are coming, that biscuits contains the fiber, or some another food items contains the fiber. Okay, so that rather than taking the fiber as a sole, full effect requires at least 3 to 4 days. Okay, does not soften the feces already present in the colon or rectum. Okay, so that's why they are not useful for the treatment of constipation, but for the prevention of constipation. I already written there, for the prevention of constipation they are used, but not useful for treating already constipated subjects. So which drugs are preferred in this patient? Yes, stimulant or irritant purgatives. Okay, for the treatment of constipation, a first line drug. Then the second is osmotic purgative. Then this fiber should not be used in a patient having gut ulcerations or adhesions or stenosis, and when fecal impaction is a possibility, because they are increasing the bulk of the feces. And this type of the patient, if there is a stenosis or adhesions, the feces will not pass down down into the colon, and they can give rise to the rupture of intestine or ulceration. So they are contraindicated in this type of the patients. This is a second bulk forming agent, which is a psyllium, or also called as a this is obtained actually a plant that is called as a Plantago ovata, or it is also called as a ispagul, or in a common Indian language it is also called as a isabgol. Okay, these are all the same names. This is this plant which you may have seen this plant. It is a Plantago ovata. Okay, so these drugs are obtained from this plant. And there are some Ayurvedic preparations also which can be prepared from these plants. So yes, these contain the natural colloid, that is a mucilage, which forms a gelatinous mass by absorbing the water. These have the hydrophilic or property which absorbs the water because of their gelatinous thing, or which is also called as a mucilage, and because of that they soften the feces. Again, just like the bran, they are also fermented in the colon, and they increases the bacterial mass. So same action as the bran, they soften the feces because of their hydrophilic action, and they increases the bacterial mass, which will add to the bulky nature of the feces, which will indirectly stimulate the peristalsis also. This refined ispagul husk means the powder form or the residual product. It is taken as a 3 to 8 gram. Okay, so this is a solid one, and this should be taken mostly freshly mixed with a cold milk or fruit juice or water, and taken once or twice daily. Because of the husk nature or powdery form, we cannot consume it as a solely, so we can mix it with some liquid like milk or juice or water, and we can take on a once or twice daily basis. Okay, it acts in 1 to 3 days. They should not be swallowed dry because they may cause the esophageal impaction. Okay, they will not go down into the stomach or into the lumen because of solid nature. So they should be taken with a liquid like milk or the water or fruit juice. And this is in general amount of water must be taken with all bulk forming agent. So these are our bulk forming agent, just like a wheat bran, and the plant products like Plantago or psyllium and ispagul, which have another one which are not covering is a methyl cellulose, more or less similar action. Okay, so they have a hydrophilic action which retains the water and electrolyte. They increases the bulky nature of the feces, because of which the feces will become the soft and semi-solid, and they will be easily propelled. And in secondary, they can also stimulate the colonic motility because of the bulky nature of the feces only thing, and they can also increase the bacterial mass. But water should be taken adequately. Okay, so they are coming mostly in the powder form, should be taken with some liquid preparations. Now second class of a laxative or purgative is a stool softener. So they are softening the stools. In that, first we will see the Doxeps. Okay, so Doxeps, a long form is it is also called as a DOS, means dioctyl sodium sulfosuccinate, or it is a surfactant purgative. Now why the surfactant word is used? As you know, surfactant, it is produced in the lungs. What is the function? It reduces the surface tension in the alveoli and prevents the collapse of lungs. Here this Doxetis is also having a surfactant like action or detergent like action, where it decreases the surface tension of fluid. So it is an anionic detergent which decreases the surface tension or of fluid or water in the boil, and because of that decrease in the surface tension, it softens the stools by net water accumulation in the lumen, so that water can easily penetrate the stools, or it can be absorbed more into the stools rather than going into the intestinal epithelium. Next, it emulsifies the colonic contents. Okay, emulsion, as you all learn in the practicals, oil in water or water in oil type of emulsion. So emulsion is a mixing of two immiscible solid. So what we are mixing? We are mixing the water along with fatty substances of the feces. So fatty substances which are present and the water, they are not easily emulsifiable. So this drug or Doxetis can work as a emulsifying agent, and it increases the penetration of water into the fatty substances of the feces, because of which again the stool becomes soft, increases the bulky nature of the stools, and they can be easily propelled or pass. So it is a mild laxative. So it is not a stronger one like a stimulant or osmotic purgative or third and fourth class of a drug. It is especially indicated when straining at stools must be avoided, just like the first drug, like a bulk forming. Okay, like in a hernia, cardiovascular disease, ocular surgery or piles, where straining at stools should be avoided. So both these classes of a drug have a same type of uses for preventing the functional constipation, and for when the straining at the stools must be avoided, especially in the bedridden patient. Okay, after the surgery or after some disease, or before the or in some type of a disease. Dose is 100 to 400 milligram per day. So it is a solid which is come into the can be given orally, and it acts in 1 to 3 days. So a longer time required for its action. Okay, it can be given in the form of enema as an emulsifying agent. Okay, through the rectal route. What are the drawbacks or adverse effects of these Doxetis? It can produce the cramps, abdominal pain, a nausea, because it is a bitter in the taste, so it can cause the nausea, and a long term use can cause hepatotoxicity. Remember, this is not a short term adverse effect. A very long term use of Doxetis can lead to the hepatotoxicity. Okay, as it may be absorbed into the systemic circulation. Next, it can disrupt the mucosal barrier, and it enhances the absorption of many unabsorbable drugs like liquid paraffin. So liquid paraffin and Doxetis or DOS should not be given together. Okay, so this is all about the Doxetis. So it is a surfactant type of action, decreases the surface tension and increases the water accumulation in the stools, and emulsifying the water with the fatty substances of the feces. Next, stool softener is a liquid paraffin, and it is also called as a lubricant purgative. The previous one, Doxetis, is called as a surfactant purgative. This is called as a lubricant purgative. So liquid paraffin, as it is useful in most of the ointments also, as you have learned. Okay, so it is have a lubricating function there. Okay, or it is a forming a type of coating. So here it is also lubricating what? Feces, or it is forming the coating over the hard stools and making them soft. Okay, so liquid paraffin, obviously it is a liquid, so it is a viscous liquid, very thick liquid, which is pharmacologically inert, means it is neither absorbed, it is neither secreted. Okay, you can say when you are taking it for 2 to 3 days, it softens the stools and is said to lubricate the hard scabuli. What is the scabuli? They are nothing but hard stools, ribbon like or hard stools. So it coats the stools and it can make them easily propelled. It also retards the water absorption from the stools. Okay, so it retains the water and reduces the water absorption from the stools. It is liquid, so it is given as a 15 to 30 ml per day. Okay, previous we have seen a milligram or gram. This is a liquid, so ml per day, 15 to 30 ml at bedtime. So it can be given as a oil as such, or it can be given in emulsified form. and it requires 2 to 3 days or 1 to 3 days for its action. But liquid paraffin is not preferred because of its adverse effect or some disadvantages. What are they? It is a bland, so it is not having a proper taste, so tasteless you can say, so unpleasant to swallow because of oily consistency. Second, this small amount can pass into the intestinal mucosa from where it is carried into the lymphatic drainage, okay, and where it can produce the foreign body granulomas in intestinal submucosa or in the mesenteric lymph node or in the organ like liver and the spleen. So foreign body granuloma can be produced by liquid paraffin, okay, a very characteristic side effect. Next side effect, when we are swallowing, it may go into the lungs, okay, and where it can produce the aspiration pneumonia or lipid pneumonia. Okay, this is another characteristic side effect of liquid paraffin which can be asked as an MCQ. So L liquid paraffin, L lipid pneumonia. Next is it can lead to the deficiency of fat soluble vitamins. Remember, it is an emulsifying agent, mixing the fats and water. So our diet contains the fat soluble vitamin and water soluble vitamin which need to be reabsorbed into the absorbed. But as it is absorbing the fat soluble vitamin, it may excrete them into the feces which can lead to the deficiency of fat soluble vitamins like A, D, E, K on chronic use. And it can pass through the anal sphincter when we are taking through an oily form which can be embarrassing for the person. Okay, so these are the disadvantages of liquid paraffin for which it is less preferred. Now coming to the third class of a drug, that is a stimulant or irritant purgative. So these are the powerful purgatives, okay, and they can produce the gripping nature like abdominal cramps because they are irritating the intestinal mucosa and increasing the peristalsis. So this is abdominal cramps is a very common side effect of this stimulant purgative and are also called as a irritant purgative. This produces the soft semi-fluid stools. Now the first class of the drug, they are producing the soft form stools. These are producing the soft but semi-fluid stools. Okay, they irritate the intestinal mucosa and they increases the motility by acting on the mesenteric plexus of neurons which is present in the GIT or intestine. Again, they causes the accumulation of water and electrolytes in the lumen, okay, by various mechanisms. So like sodium, chloride, water, they are all retained in the lumen and they are not reabsorbed, or they may be secreted from the epithelium into the lumen. Okay, so we'll see in the next slide how these are acting to accumulate the water and electrolytes. So they causes the fluid accumulation in the gut lumen by one or more of the following mechanism. The first one, they inhibit the sodium potassium ATPase which is present in villus cells. You know the intestine contains the villi which have the villus cells. So this sodium potassium ATPase which is responsible for reabsorption of sodium and excretion of potassium, it is inhibited, because of which sodium will be not reabsorbed, water will not be reabsorbed. So in general they are excreted in the feces. So they impair the electrolyte and water absorption. Second, they can stimulate the adenylyl cyclase enzyme in the Krebs cells. Okay, the adenylyl cyclase you are learning in the general pharmacology, which is responsible for conversion of ATP into the cyclic AMP. So in general, this drug increases the cyclic AMP, and by increasing the cyclic AMP in the intestinal epithelium, they increases the water and various electrolyte secretions like sodium or chloride. Okay, so first they inhibit the reabsorption, second they increases the secretion, just like nephrons in the kidney. Okay, the diuretics inhibiting the reabsorption. Okay, some they are increasing the secretion. Third, enhancing the prostaglandin synthesis in the mucosa. So prostaglandin also responsible for increasing the secretion of electrolytes like chloride or sodium, and again they can also increases the intestinal motility. So these are dual advantage of increasing the prostaglandin synthesis. As we already learned in the classification, lubiprostone is a prostaglandin analog which is basically acting by this mechanism. Next mechanism, increasing the nitric oxide synthesis, which enhances the secretion of electrolytes, and it also inhibits the non-propulsive contractions in the colon. Remember, there are some propulsive contractions and there are some non-propulsive contractions. We have to increase the propulsive and we have to inhibit the non-propulsive contractions. So they are inhibited by nitric oxide. So nitric oxide, which we have learned in the CVS, which is having a vasodilator property, it also have another property of increasing the secretion of electrolytes in the lumen. So mainly bisacodyl, okay, and Cascara sagrada is acting by these mechanisms by increasing the nitric oxide synthesis. And the last is a structural injury to the absorbing intestinal and mucosal cells, because of which there will be no absorption, okay, of electrolytes and water. So these are the 5 mechanisms: inhibit the sodium potassium and stimulate the adenylyl cyclase, stimulate the prostaglandin and nitric oxide synthesis. What are the drawbacks? They can cause the fluid and electrolyte imbalance. Stimulant purgative can cause the hypokalemia because they are inhibiting the sodium potassium ATP. They can cause the colonic atony, okay, because of more stimulation or irritation or increasing the peristalsis. After long term use, the colon will not be having the proper contraction and it will lose its tonicity. That is called colonic atony, okay. Then they can also reflexively stimulate the gravid uterus, means in a pregnant woman, because of which it is contraindicated during pregnancy. So stimulant purgatives are contraindicated during pregnancy, okay, because they can stimulate the uterus and stimulate the uterine contraction. And last, they are contraindicated in subacute or chronic intestinal obstruction, because they are increasing the peristalsis and down there is obstruction, so they may cause the intestinal rupture, okay. For that matter, all laxative or purgatives are contraindicated in intestinal obstruction, okay. Now the first class, diphenylmethanes, it contains the phenolphthalein, which is a litmus like indicator which turns the urine pink if alkaline. Then bisacodyl. Now what is the characteristic? It is excreted in the bile and it is activated in the intestine by deacetylation, okay. So acetyl group is removed and it is deacetylated. Now this deacetylated metabolite of bisacodyl, it acts on the colon where it irritates the mucosa, it produces the mild inflammation and it inhibits the reabsorption and it increases the secretion of water and electrolytes, because of which 1 or 2 semi-formed motions occur after 6 to 8 hours of giving the bisacodyl. Brand name for this bisacodyl, which is very popular, is a Dulcolax, okay. So Dulcolax comes in a tablet as a 5 to 15 milligrams, okay. Mostly a 10 milligram tablet is given in adults while 5 milligram is given in the children. And bisacodyl also comes in the suppository. Suppository should be put into the rectum. Tablet taken by oral route, suppository should be put into the rectum. So by rectum route, when we are putting in as a suppository, it produces the faster action within 2 to 3 hours. But by oral route, it takes 6 to 8 hours. That's why these type of the drugs are given in the night at bedtime, or it's also called as a HS. So Dulcolax 10 milligram tablet HS at bedtime, Horasomni. Side effects: some skin reactions, fixed drug eruption, and sometimes a Stevens-Johnson syndrome can be caused by the bisacodyl, okay. So these are the irritant purgatives, which are irritating or stimulating the mucosa and inhibiting the absorption, increasing the secretion. Next is from the irritant purgative of first class, that is a diphenylmethanes. Apart from bisacodyl, the drug is sodium picosulfate. This is also one of the commonly preferred. It is hydrolyzed by colonic bacteria to an active form, okay, which then acts locally to irritate the mucosa. So it is inactive, it is activated in the colon to irritate the by hydrolysis, and it activates the myelinic neurons to stimulate the peristalsis. So more or less similar mechanism as of all these irritant purgative, and bowel movement occurs after 6 to 12 hours of oral dose. So it is again also given at the same dose of bisacodyl, 5 to 10 milligram at the bedtime. It can be useful for another purpose along with magnesium citrate to evacuate the colon for colonoscopy and colonic surgery. Remember, when we have to do the colonoscopy, like endoscopy, visualization of scopy means visualization of colon, okay, and colonic surgery. So we want a complete emptying of the colon. We don't want any fecal material or another material there. So for complete M tank of the colon, we can give the osmotic purgative like magnesium sulfate, and we can add sodium picosulfate along with it to completely empty the colon. Okay, so sodium picosulfate also given orally and irritating the mucosa and increasing the peristalsis. Next group in the stimulant purgative is the anthraquinones. As I told you, these are obtained from the plants like senna, from the leaves and pods of the senna plant. Actually name is a cassia plant species, while another plant is a Cascara sagrada. So from the leaves of senna or from the powder bark of the cascara, we obtain the anthraquinones, and these anthraquinone glycosides are also called as the imodins. Okay, so what is the mechanism of action? They are not absorbed into the small intestine and they directly passes to the colon. Okay, where the bacteria liberate the active anthrol form, and this active anthrol form either act locally in the colon or it is absorbed into the systemic circulation, excreted in the bile, and then it stimulates the small intestine. Because of this, they may take 6 to 8 hours to produce the action. Remember, the drugs which are directly acting on the colon, they can have a less duration of action. Okay, but the drugs which are acting on small intestine, they may take 6 to 8 hours of action. So this may be acting through the small intestine, they may be acting on the colon, mixed action. Now, a very important thing, they should be avoided in the lactating mothers because they are secreted in the milk. So senna or Cascara sagrada should not be given in lactating mothers. Most of the Ayurvedic preparations, just like the Isabgol we have learned in the Isabgol or Ispagol in the bulk forming, this senna or Cascara sagrada is present in Ayurvedic preparations, one of which we may have heard a Kayam Churna. So that may contain this type of the plant products apart from another plant products. So they should be taken at a bedtime, 6 to 8 hours of action. So taken at bedtime so that they can produce the soft but firm evacuation generally in the morning. So soft or semi-solid stools they can produce in the morning. They act on the mesenteric plexus just like another irritant purgative to increase the peristalsis, and they also inhibit the salt and water reabsorption and increases the secretion. Just like bisacodyl, they can also cause skin rashes or fixed drug eruption. They can cause the colonic atony, and they can cause very characteristic side effect which is called as a melanosis coli. The brownish pigmentation of the mucosa of the colon, which is called as a melanosis coli. So this type of the plant product like senna or Cascara sagrada produces this characteristic side effect, melanosis coli. This can be asked as a MCQ. Okay, so liquid paraffin causes the foreign body granuloma and lipid pneumonia. This type of the causes the melanosis coli, senna and Cascara sagrada plant products. Now a 5-HT4 agonist type of the stimulant purgative, the name is prucalopride. So you may have learned in the antiemetic that there are some 5-HT4 agonistic drug like cisapride, mozopride and etopride, but most of the time they are some are banned or some are not preferred because they have a one characteristic side effect, that is a QT prolongation. Okay, because also called as polymorphic ventricular tachycardia or torsades de pointes. This is characteristically absent in prucalopride. So this is a selective 5-HT4 receptor agonist which is useful in the treatment of chronic constipation, especially in the woman. Okay, it activates the prejunctional 5-HT4 serotonin receptor which are present on intrinsic neurons in the intestine, which enhances the release of excitatory neurotransmitter acetylcholine. Because of increased acetylcholine, it promotes the peristalsis, it increases the colonic motility. Okay, so same mechanism of action of increasing the colonic motility, but by activating the 5-HT4 receptor and by increasing the acetylcholine. Okay, so colonic transit and stool frequency is improved in constipation predominant irritable bowel syndrome. So apart from constipation, it can be useful in irritable bowel syndrome, that is a constipation predominant irritable bowel syndrome. They have a low affinity for another type of receptor like 5-HT1B 1D receptor, which are present mainly on cardiac or heart potassium channel. So because of less affinity for this cardiac potassium channels, it is believed to be free of cardiovascular risk or does not cause the QT prolongation. It is given as a oral dose 2 milligram OD. Elderly start with 1 milligram OD. Okay. Next, among the stimulant purgative is a recently developed drug, that is a lubiprostone. So I have already told you this is a prostaglandin analog, which is a EP4 receptor agonist, which are the receptors for prostaglandin, and it is useful mainly in the treatment of constipation, predominant irritable bowel syndrome. So just like prucalopride, lubiprostone is also useful for constipation, predominant IBS, okay, or irritable bowel syndrome, and also useful for chronic constipation. How it acts? In one word, it stimulates the mucosal chloride channel and increases the intestinal secretion. This is a very characteristic mechanism. There are chloride channels in intestinal epithelium which are stimulated by lubiprostone, and it increases the intestinal secretion. Okay, so both this drug, prucalopride and lubiprostone, can be useful in constipation, predominant IBS or irritable bowel syndrome. Next, castor oil. It is obtained from the, it is a bland vegetable oil, एरंडी का तेल आपने सुना होगा. A vegetable oil which is obtained from seeds of Ricinus communis. Okay, this is a plant from which the seeds of these plants we obtain the castor oil. It is hydrolyzed in the ileum by enzyme pancreatic lipase to ricinoleic acid. Okay, and which this ricinoleic acid irritates the mucosa and stimulates the intestinal contraction. As it is a liquid, it is taken in 15 to 25 ml in adults, while 5 to 15 ml in the children in the morning. And remember, though it is a irritant or stimulant purgative, its duration of action is not 6 to 8 hours like others. Its duration of action is very fast, it is 2 to 3 hours. So it may actually causing purgative type of action. So but a motion is semi-fluid or sometimes watery. Okay, but because of unpalatability, because of its bland or tasteless property, frequent cramping action like osmotic purgative, and possibility of dehydration and after constipation. What happens? After constipation means when we are completely vacating the colon, there is no fluid or water remain in the colon, because of which again a constipation can occur. That is called after constipation. This can occur as a side effect of castor oil, so it is no longer a favored purgative. Okay. Last class of the drug is osmotic purgative. So these are the, like a word suggests, they have a osmotic property. They are not absorbed in the intestine and they retain the water osmotically. Because of retaining the water, they distend the bowel, and because of distension of bowel, they increases the peristaltic activity indirectly. So osmotic activity first, which retains the water, and because of that, they increases the peristalsis. Apart from that, magnesium salts, they or ions, they also releases the cholecystokinin CCK enzyme, which augments the motility and secretion, which can contribute to the purgative action. So there are various salts and various another names from them. Magnesium sulfate, which is called as a Epsom salt, 5 to 15 gram is the dose. Magnesium hydroxide, remember this is also useful as an antacid and also called as a milk of magnesia. It is useful as a 8% weight by weight suspension, okay, as a 30 ml. It is bland in the taste. Sodium sulfate, which is also called as a Glauber salt, 10 to 15 gram is a dose. They are bad in the taste. Most of them, they are unpleasant or bad in the taste. Sodium phosphate, 6 to 12 gram. Sodium potassium tartarate, which is also called as a Rochelle salt, is a 8 to 15 gram. So most of them have a dose within the range of 5 to 15 gram. They are tasteless or bitter in the taste, so they may be nauseating. So there are another names which can be asked as a MCQ: magnesium sulfate, Epsom salt; magnesium hydroxide, milk of magnesia; sodium sulfate, Glauber salt; sodium potassium tartarate, Rochelle salt. These salts, this should be dissolved in the 150 to 200 ml of water. 5 to 15 gram of this salt dissolved in 150 to 200 ml of water means a glass full of water, and they produces 1 to fluid evacuation. But they have a very rapid action within 1 to 3 hours. That's why they should be mostly taken in the morning and not at the night, and they can produce the cramping or abdominal cramps, but they causes the nearly complete emptying of the bowel. But there are some precautions or contraindications. Magnesium salts are contraindicated in renal failure or renal insufficiency. Sodium salts should not be given in the patients of congestive heart failure or in other sodium retaining status, like in a hypertension patient. So hypertension and CHF, don't use sodium salt. Renal failure, don't use magnesium salt, and apart from that they can cause the fluid and electrolyte imbalance. So saline purgatives, they are not useful for treatment of constipation because they are inconvenient and unpleasant in the taste. They produces the watery stools and they can produce the after constipation. So if they are not useful for the treatment of constipation, when why we are learning in the constipation? So they are not useful in functional constipation, okay, or venous straining at the stools need to be avoided, but they are useful in other things where we want to increase the colonic motility. Like they may be preferred for 3 uses. First, preparation of boil before surgery and colonoscopy. So this is not a proper constipation, but it comes in the heading of increasing the motility of colon. So when we have to prepare the boil for surgery or colonoscopy, we want to completely empty the boil and completely evacuate the boil. So for this, osmotic or saline purgative are used. Okay. Second, they are useful in food or drug poisoning. So if any food or drug has been poisoned, so we want it should not be absorbed in the intestine and it should be evacuated. And for that we want drugs which can act rapidly. Okay, क्योंकि एब्सॉर्प्शन होने से पहले आप उनको आपके इंटेस्टाइन से निकालना है. तो these drugs are fast acting, 1 to 3 hours of action, so they can be useful in various food or drug poisoning, and they can be useful as a after purge. What is meaning of this we will see in the treatment of tapeworm infestation. What happens when we are giving the anti-helminthic drug? Anti-helminthic drugs which are useful to inhibit the helminthic infestation, like a nematode, cystor, or tapeworm. So what happens when these worms are killed by the drugs like albendazole or mebendazole? These worms remain there in the intestine. Now we don't want to remain these worms in the intestine. We want them to be excreted in the feces. Okay, so to increase the motility and to for the extraction of these worms in the feces, we can give this type of the saline or osmotic purgative, and that is called as the after purge, or in general you can say to wash out the colon. Okay, so these are the 3 uses where this saline or osmotic purgatives are used rather than for the treatment of functional constipation or to prevent the straining at the stools. Okay, now last is a lactulose, which is though it is osmotic purgative, it does not have that typical osmotic fast action. So it is a disaccharide of fructose and lactose, as you are learning in biochemistry, which is neither digested, which is neither absorbed. So it retains the water because of osmotic action. It is broken down into the colon by the colonic bacteria to osmotically active product. Okay, and this osmotically active product, they can retain the water and electrolyte in them. Okay, in the feces. The dose of lactulose is the 10 gram twice daily with a plenty of water. It produces the soft and firm stools in 1 to 3 days. So it is like a stool softener or bulb forming, taking the long duration of action and softening the stools. Okay. Another very characteristic use of lactulose is in hepatic coma, which is asked as a 2-mark short note time question. So hepatic coma or hepatic encephalopathy, it is a condition which is a complication of hepatic failure. Okay, where the patient may become unconscious or where the patient may develop some neurological symptoms like tremor or some behavioral abnormalities. Why it happens? Because of the liver problem, the ammonia is not getting converted into the urea, and this ammonia can cross the blood-brain barrier and it can produce this type of the symptoms like flapping, tremor, or asterixis, or some behavioral abnormalities or some involuntary movement. So what is done with lactulose in the patients with hepatic encephalopathy? Lactulose causes reduction of blood ammonia concentration by 25 to 50%. Okay, how? Because the breakdown products of lactulose are acidic. The lactulose is converted into the lactic acid, and because of which the pH of the stools is reduced, means it becomes more acidic. Now because of acidic pH, this ammonia which is produced by bacteria, it is converted into the ammonium salt, that is NH4 salt. Remember, because of acid, the H plus ion is added to the ammonia. Ammonia is NH3, so we are adding H ion, that is the ionized NH4 salt, And as you know, ionized drug, they are not reabsorbed, they become water soluble and they can be easily excreted. So they become it convert the ammonia into the ammonium salts which are not absorbed and which is excreted. That's why lactulose is preferred in the patient of hepatic coma. Another drug is which is preferred in hepatic coma is neomycin, which you may learn in the aminoglycoside chapter of antibiotics. Okay, it is given orally in hepatic coma. Contraindication to the laxative, with this we have seen, but in general, whenever there is a undiagnosed abdominal pain or colic, intense abdominal pain or vomiting, should not use the laxative. And when there is some organic or secondary cause for constipation, don't use laxative. So laxatives are already only preferred in functional constipation. So organic causes we have already seen: strictures or obstruction in the bowel, vitamin B12 deficiency, hypothyroidism, hypercalcemia, diabetes, malignancy, Parkinson's disease. And whenever there is some drugs which are producing the constipation like opioid or anticholinergic, antihistaminic, clonidine, verapamil, iron. Okay, so don't use the laxative in this type of the conditions. So these are the in general contraindication for laxative. And the last important is a indication. So there are almost 6 to 7 indication or uses of this laxative or purgative. The first one is a functional constipation, where there is no secondary cause or organic cause. The functional constipation can be a spastic constipation or it can be atonic constipation. So spastic constipation, bowel is irritated. Okay, so already the bowel is irritated. So irritant purgative or stimulant purgative should not be useful in this. What happens is spastic constipation, the stools are very hard, they are rounded, they are stone like, and they are difficult to pass. So first choice laxative is our first class of a drug, like dietary fiber or any other bulk forming agent like Plantago or psyllium husk or isabgol or methyl cellulose type of the drug, but they should be taken for weeks or months because they take the more time to their action. But stimulant or irritant purgative like bisacodyl or senna plant should not be useful in spastic constipation. While atonic constipation, which is called as a sluggish bowel, here the colon has loose its tonicity, because of which peristaltic movement has reduced and the bowel movements are very sluggish. So this occurs mostly in the advanced age in an elderly patient, or because of some another debilitating diseases like cancer where the bedridden or laxative abuse. Here we don't use the drug directly, we mostly give plenty of fluids, or we prefer the exercise, regular bowel habits or reassurance. Okay, but in resistant cases a bulk forming agent can be prescribed like a bran or isabgol, or in case of bulk forming agent there is a poor compliance or not satisfactory response, then we can use the stimulant or irritant purgative like bisacodyl, that is a Dulcolax as a brand name, or senna type of the plants like a Kayam Chun or other type of the Ayurvedic products, which may be given once or twice a week for as short period as possible because they have another side effects. Okay. Second use of this laxative or purgative is in the bedridden patient, like in a patient of MI or stroke or fractures or post-operative. The bowel movement are very sluggish and constipation can be anticipated. So we want to prevent the constipation in the bedridden patient. The constipation may not have occurred already or it may have occurred. So to prevent the constipation in bedridden patient, we can give the bulk forming or stool softener agent, first or second class of a drug. Okay, Doxecyts, again yes, lactulose, which is osmotic purgative, but again having the same action of stool softener. So Doxecyts, lactulose or liquid paraffin can be useful for preventing the constipation. Or to treat the constipation, we can give the enema of soap water or glycerin, or we can use the irritant purgative like a bisacodyl or senna. So this is the second use of laxative for the bedridden patient, either to prevent the constipation, bulk forming or stool softener; to treat the constipation, bisacodyl or senna plant products. Third use is to avoid the straining at stools. So when we want to avoid the straining at a stool, in hernia patient, in cardiovascular disease patient like infective endocarditis, in eye surgery patients like in a ocular surgery of cataract or glaucoma, or in the perianal afflictions like in a patients of hemorrhoids or piles, or in anal fissures or anal fistula or anal surgery. So in this type of the patient, we want to keep the feces soft so as to eliminate the efforts for passing the stools. Okay, so use the adequate dose of bulk forming agent like a bran or lactulose, or a stool softener like Doxetis or liquid paraffin. Okay, next three uses are more of saline or osmotic purgative, okay, or the stimulant purgative. Okay, what are they? Preparation of bowel for surgery, colonoscopy, or abdominal x-ray. Remember, even for abdominal x-ray, we don't want any type of gases in the colon or any type of food material, so we want to empty the colon completely. So bowel needs to be emptied of contents including the gas. That's why saline or osmotic purgative like sodium or magnesium salt, which we have seen, magnesium sulfate or hydroxide, or stimulant purgative like bisacodyl or senna may be used. Castor oil only in exceptional circumstances. So preparation of bowel for surgery, colonoscopy, and abdominal x-ray. Next use is after a certain anti-helminthic drug like albendazole or mebendazole, which are especially for tapeworm like Taenia solium or Taenia saginata. So saline purgative or senna may be used to flush out the worm after the use of anti-helminthic drug. So anti-helminthic drug kills the worm, they remain in the lumen, and we want to flush out or extract these worms out of the intestine, so we can use the saline purgative or senna type of the product. But fixed dose combination of anti-helminthic drug other than piperazine with a purgative is banned in India. Okay, so we cannot use the fixed dose combination, we have to give them differently. And last use of this drug is a food or drug poisoning. The idea is to drive out the unabsorbed or irritant or poisonous material from the intestine, and only saline purgatives, which are very quickly acting within 1 to 3 hours, they are satisfactory. So this is all about the drugs useful in treatment of constipation. So first we will just quickly revise. There are 4 classes: bulk forming like a bran, psyllium, isabgol, or methyl cellulose, which are increasing the bulk of the feces and making them soft. Second is a stool softener. So there are 2 drugs: Doxetis, DOS, dialkyl sodium sulfosuccinate, and liquid paraffin. So dialkyl sodium sulfosuccinate and liquid paraffin both can be produced the soft stools, but they take the again 3 to 4 days of the action. Okay, so these first 2 classes of drugs are mostly useful in the treatment of functional constipation or for preventing the functional constipation. In the treatment mostly we use the stimulant purgative. For preventing the functional constipation, these 2 classes of drugs are used, or when a straining at a stools need to be avoided, especially in the patient of hernia or cardiovascular disease or ocular surgery patient, or in a piles or hemorrhoid type of the patient. Then a third class which is very important is a stimulant or irritant purgative like diphenylmethane, phenolphthalein, bisacodyl, sodium picosulfate, 5-HT4 agonist like prucalopride, plant products like senna or cascara sagrada, which contains the anthraquinone glycosides, and castor oil. Okay, out of which a newer drug is the lubiprostone, which stimulates the chloride channels, and it acts as a prostaglandin analog and stimulate the intestine. So all these drugs, stimulant or irritant purgatives, they stimulate or irritate the intestinal mucosa, and they decreases the reabsorption of water and electrolytes, and they increases the secretions. On the other hand, they can cause the colonic atony or electrolyte disturbances like hypokalemia. Senna plants or cascara sagrada can cause the characteristic side effect as melansis coli, and liquid paraffin, which I forgot to mention, is can cause the lipid pneumonia or foreign body granuloma. And the last is osmotic or saline purgative, where we are using the magnesium and sodium salt. These are very fast acting. They, as the name suggests, they have osmotic activity. They retain the water and increases the purgation, and they also increases the colonic motility. So they are useful in the morning. Stimulant or irritant purgative are useful in the bedtime. The stimulant purgative and osmotic purgative are useful for preparation of bowel before surgery or colonoscopy or abdominal X-ray. Then they are useful after the use of anti-helminthic drug to flush out the worm, and they can be useful in the food or drug poisoning. So remember, for the constipation, try the non-pharmacological measures first, like increasing the fiber content, increasing the water intake, trying the good bowel habits, attending the nature's cause, and then we can shift to the pharmacological therapy. Thank you for this.